I was Preston, 35, a software developer married to Allison for 7 happy years. At least I thought they were happy. We had built a life together, a beautiful home in the suburbs, yearly vacations to destinations we had dreamed about. Everything seemed perfect until she started taking those frequent business trips. The late-night texts she would hide from me, the way her eyes no longer met mine when she spoke. Before I tell you how my picture-perfect marriage fell apart, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button. You will want to hear what happened next. Our life before everything fell apart was what most would consider ideal. Allison and I met at a tech conference in Boston. I was presenting a new software solution my company had developed, and she was there representing her marketing firm. Our eyes met across a crowded room during the networking event, and the connection was instant. After dating for 2 years, we got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family at a vineyard in California. I worked as a senior software developer for a cybersecurity firm creating solutions to protect corporate clients from data breaches. The work was challenging but fulfilling, allowing me to work remotely 3 days a week. Allison had climbed the corporate ladder quickly and recently been promoted to marketing director for an international consumer goods company. We were both successful in our careers, had a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a great neighborhood, and were financially comfortable. Our routine was comfortable and connected. Sunday mornings meant pancakes and coffee on the patio when weather permitted. Thursday nights were our date nights, trying new restaurants, or catching a movie. We talked about starting a family soon, even began looking into renovating the spare bedroom into a nursery. Life was good, predictable, in the best ways, passionate when it counted. The first sign something was changing came about 10 months ago. Allison announced her company was expanding into European markets, and she would need to travel more frequently for meetings and strategy sessions. At first, it was 1 trip a month, then 2, then sometimes weekly overnight stays. I supported her career ambitions, fully proud of her success and understanding of the demands. One night around 11, while Allison was in the shower, her phone buzzed repeatedly on the coffee table. I glanced over casually and noticed several text notifications from someone named Alex with heart emojis next to the name. Nothing explicit, just asking if she was free to talk. When I mentioned it later, she explained Alex was a new team member. The hearts were an inside joke about a client they both disliked. And the late hour was because of time zone differences with their international teams. The explanation made sense, but something in her eyes flickered when she gave it. A slight hesitation before the words came out. I pushed the thought away, ashamed for even momentarily doubting her. Over the next few weeks, I noticed subtle changes. Allison became increasingly private with her phone, always keeping it face down or in her pocket. She set a new password on it too, something she had never done before. When I asked about it casually, she mentioned security protocols at work requiring everyone to lock their personal devices. Her interest in fitness suddenly intensified. 3 nights a week at the gym became 5, sometimes with sessions, so long she would not return until after 9 in the evening, flushed and energized. She bought new workout clothes, then new dresses, then completely revamped her wardrobe with styles slightly different from what she usually wore. Her hair appointments became more frequent with subtle highlights and an expensive new cut. The most concerning change was the mysterious phone calls. Allison would suddenly step onto the back patio to take calls, her voice too low to hear through the glass doors. Once when I stepped outside to offer her a glass of wine, she abruptly ended her call, looking startled to see me in my own backyard. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling growing in my stomach. Allison was just advancing in her career, focusing more on her appearance as she represented her company at higher levels. The calls were probably confidential. Work matters. The late nights at the gym were stress relief from her new responsibilities. I repeated these explanations to myself, trying to silence the voice of doubt. Our physical intimacy began to wane. Allison was often too tired from travel, or claimed early morning meetings required her to sleep immediately. When we did connect physically, something felt different, mechanical, almost as if she were going through motions rather than being present with me. Weekends became lonely, as her business trips frequently extended from Thursday through Monday. Our home felt emptier, my evenings longer, meals eaten alone at the kitchen counter instead of conversations across our dining table. I found myself checking her flight details, noting the planes always seemed to land late, and she would arrive home even later than the scheduled arrival times would suggest. After 3 months of this new normal, I met my best friend Jake for beers at our usual sports bar. He listened as I described the changes, careful not to accuse Allison of anything, but clearly concerned about the patterns. "Have you considered she might be seeing someone else?" Jake finally asked, his expression serious. "Allison would never do that," I said immediately, but the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. "Look, man, I hope I am wrong." Jake continued, "But my sister went through something similar with her ex. Almost identical pattern. The increased travel, the gym obsession, the phone secrecy. Classic signs. What should I do?" I asked, finally voicing the question keeping me awake at night. "Find out the truth," Jake said simply. "One way or another, you need to know." That conversation with Jake changed everything. On the drive home, I realized I had been willfully blind, choosing comfortable denial over confronting painful possibilities. But now that the thought had been voiced aloud, I could not put it back in its box. I needed answers, even if they broke my heart. The next day, Allison left for what she described as a 3-day conference in Chicago. After she departed, I sat at our kitchen table with a legal pad and began listing all the things that had been bothering me. Seeing them written out made the pattern even clearer, and my chest tightened with each item. I added, "I decided to start investigating, beginning with technology." Allison and I shared our location with each other through our phones. Originally a safety measure we had set up years ago. I checked her location and discovered something alarming. She was not at O'Hare Airport as she should have been. Instead, her location showed her still in town at an upscale hotel just 20 miles from our home. My hands trembled as I dug deeper. We maintained a joint credit card account for household expenses and travel. I logged in and scrolled through recent transactions. There it was clear as day: charges at an expensive restaurant downtown last month when she was supposedly in Denver. A hotel charge in our own city during her alleged trip to Atlanta. Boutique shopping purchases and spa visits on days she told me she was working late. I went further, logging into our shared computer, where Allison sometimes checked her work email. She remained logged in, and I found myself scrolling through her calendar and correspondence. According to her actual work schedule, there was no conference in Chicago this week. No meetings in Denver last month. The business trips that had become so frequent appeared to be largely fabricated. The evidence mounted, but I needed to be absolutely certain. A week later, I attended a company picnic with Allison, where several of her colleagues were present. I casually struck up a conversation with her assistant Lisa. "Allison must be exhausted from all the travel lately," I commented. "Those overnight trips to Chicago seem to be happening every week." Lisa looked confused. "Chicago. The regional office there closed last quarter. We do everything virtually with that team now." "Oh, I must have misunderstood," I recovered quickly. "I meant the client meetings she has been having." "Most of our client meetings have been local lately," Lisa said, then lowered her voice. "Though she has been leaving early on Thursdays, I assumed it was to spend time with you." My heart sank. Thursday had once been our date night, now apparently repurposed for something or someone else. The final confirmation came when I reluctantly hired a private investigator. It felt extreme, but I needed indisputable evidence before confronting Allison. The PI took surveillance photos over 2 weeks and delivered the results in a manila envelope I could barely bring myself to open. The photographs showed Allison entering the Grand Meridian Hotel on multiple occasions, always meeting the same man in the lobby. Tall, well-dressed, confident-looking. They would have dinner at the hotel restaurant, sit close together, hold hands across the table, and eventually take the elevator upstairs together. In some photos, they were kissing in the parking garage or embracing in the elevator. The timestamps showed she would spend hours there before returning home to me. Through some additional investigation, the PI identified the man as Scott Daniels, the newly appointed chief financial officer at her company. Further research revealed he was married with 2 young children, but reportedly having marital problems of his own. That night I could not sleep. I paced our house looking at photos of Allison and me through the years. Our wedding day. hiking in Colorado, Christmas with her parents, beach vacation in Hawaii. Images of a life I thought was unshakable now revealed to be built on sand. I looked back through text messages from the past 6 months with this new lens of awareness. So many lies. So many fabricated stories. So many times she had claimed to be working late, stuck in traffic at the gym, or held up in meetings when she was actually with him. It was all there in plain sight once I allowed myself to see it. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Every memory now felt tainted, every moment of intimacy we had shared during this time contaminated by her deception. I wondered if she had ever truly loved me, or if Scott was just the first or perhaps just the latest in a series of affairs. After days of torment, I made a decision. I would not confront Allison with accusations or partial evidence. I would catch her in the act, leaving no room for denial or manipulation. And I would be prepared for the aftermath. My first step was consulting a divorce attorney who outlined my options and helped me understand the process ahead. Next, I gathered financial records, made copies of all evidence, and began quietly preparing for separation. I transferred my personal savings to a new individual account and documented all our assets. With the groundwork laid, I waited for her next business trip, which came the following Thursday. Allison kissed me goodbye, wheeled her suitcase to her car, and told me she would see me Sunday night after her Denver conference. I waited 20 minutes, then followed her at a safe distance. As expected, she drove directly to the Grand Meridian Hotel. I parked across the street and watched as she checked in, then sat in the lobby bar, clearly waiting for someone. 30 minutes later, Scott arrived, kissed her deeply, and they walked hand in hand to the elevator. I felt sick, but also strangely calm. The confirmation of what I already knew brought a certain clarity. I called Scott's wife, a connection I had established days earlier, and told her exactly where her husband was and with whom. Then I called my lawyer to set the final phase in motion. 3 hours later, I walked into the Grand Meridian Hotel with an envelope containing divorce papers. I approached the front desk, explained the situation to the discreet manager, and asked him to call both Allison and Scott to the lobby for an urgent matter. My heart pounded as I waited in a corner of the lobby, watching the elevator numbers descend. When they stepped out, Allison was laughing at something. Scott said, her hand casually resting on his arm. They approached the front desk looking confused, not seeing me yet. The moment Allison spotted me, her face drained of color. Scott, quickly assessing the situation, took a step away from her, already creating distance. "Preston," she gasped. "What are you doing here?" I thought. "How did you?" "Hello, Allison," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I believe you told me you were in Denver." Scott began edging toward the door. "I should go." "Actually, Scott, I called out, you might want to stay. Your wife, Catherine, is on her way. She would like to speak with you too." His face went pale as he hurried toward the exit, leaving Allison alone to face me. The cowardice of both of them was almost laughable. I approached Allison and handed her the envelope. "These are divorce papers. I have documented your affair extensively. My lawyer will contact you tomorrow to discuss next steps." "Preston, please," she began, tears forming in her eyes. "This is not what it looks like. I can explain everything." "There is nothing to explain," I replied. "You have been sleeping with Scott for months while lying to my face. You betrayed our marriage, our home, and every promise you ever made to me." "It was a mistake," she pleaded, now openly crying. "It did not mean anything. Scott and I, it was just physical. I love you, only you. We can fix this. Go to counseling." Several hotel guests were watching our scene with uncomfortable interest. The humiliation she felt was nothing compared to what she had put me through. "There is nothing to fix," I said firmly. "I deserve better than lies. I deserve better than you." As I turned to leave, she grabbed my arm. "Please do not do this. 7 years together has to mean something. One mistake should not erase everything we built." I looked her in the eyes one last time. It was not one mistake. It was hundreds of choices. Every time you lied, every time you met him, every time you came home to me pretending everything was normal. You chose this outcome, Allison, I am just finalizing it. Walking out of that hotel lobby was one of the hardest things I ever did. I parked across the street and watched as she checked in, then sat in the lobby bar, clearly waiting for someone. 30 minutes later, Scott arrived, kissed her deeply, and they walked hand in hand to the elevator. I felt sick, but also strangely calm. The confirmation of what I already knew brought a certain clarity. I called Scott's wife, a connection I had established days earlier, and told her exactly where her husband was and with whom. Her messages cycled through tearful apologies, angry accusations that I had overreacted, and desperate pleas for reconciliation. I maintained minimal contact, speaking with her only through our lawyers when necessary. She eventually admitted the affair had been going on for nearly 7 months, starting shortly after Scott joined her company. According to her, he had pursued her aggressively, making her feel special and desired in ways she claimed I had stopped doing. This attempt to shift blame only confirmed my decision to end our marriage. Not once did she take full responsibility, without qualification or excuse. Not once did she acknowledge the depth of pain her deception had caused. The divorce proceedings moved forward. We had no children, which simplified matters somewhat, though dividing our shared life was still complicated. The house was sold, assets divided, and 6 months after that night at the hotel, our divorce was finalized. Not because I wanted to stay with her, but because I was walking away from the life I thought I had the future. I had planned the person I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. The following weeks were a blur of legal meetings, painful conversations, and sleepless nights. Allison moved out of our house the day after the hotel confrontation, staying with her sister while continuing to call and text me constantly. I moved into a sterile apartment that never quite felt like home. Nights stretched endlessly, silence my only companion. I lost weight, could not concentrate at work, and found myself declining social invitations to sit alone staring at walls. My emotional state cycled unpredictably. Some days brought rage so intense. I would go to the gym and punch the heavy bag until my knuckles bled through the wraps. Other days brought a hollowness so complete I could barely summon the energy to get out of bed. I questioned everything about myself, wondering what flaws in me had driven Allison to seek comfort elsewhere. After 3 months of this downward spiral, I finally sought help from a therapist. Dr. Russell helped me understand that while marriages fail for many reasons, the decision to cheat rather than communicate or leave honestly was entirely on Allison. Week by week, session by session, I began to rebuild my sense of self. I threw myself into work, earning a promotion that came with new responsibilities. I renovated my apartment, making it truly mine rather than a temporary stopping place. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, forcing myself to be social even when it was the last thing I wanted. Physical activity became my therapy, alongside the professional help. I joined a rock climbing gym, taking on increasingly difficult routes as my strength and confidence grew. There was something powerfully symbolic about facing a vertical challenge, mapping a path upward, and conquering it through persistence and strategy. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Allison and Scott had also broken up. Apparently, his wife had taken him back briefly before discovering he was still seeing other women. Allison had been just one in a pattern for him, not the special connection she had destroyed our marriage to pursue. This news brought no satisfaction. Only a sense of sad inevitability. People who cheat together rarely find lasting happiness in the relationship born from that deception. Trust once broken is like a mirror. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks remain visible. Almost a year after the hotel confrontation, I unexpectedly ran into Allison at a coffee shop downtown. She looked thinner, older. Somehow, though, it had not been that long. We exchanged awkward greetings and she asked if we could talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed to sit with her for a few minutes. She apologized again, this time, without excuses or qualifications. She spoke about the therapy she had been doing, the realizations she had come to about her own insecurities and need for validation. She mentioned regret, not just for the affair, but for who she had become during it. For the first time, I believed her remorse was genuine. But as we talked, I realized something important. I felt nothing for her anymore. No anger, no love, no desire to reconnect. The woman sitting across from me was essentially a stranger, someone from a past life. When we parted ways after 20 minutes, I knew with certainty I would never look back. Around that time, I met Natalie at a work conference. She was brilliant, kind, and refreshingly direct. Our connection developed slowly, built on honest communication and mutual respect. I was transparent about my divorce and the trust issues it had created. She understood, having weathered her own relationship challenges in the past. As months passed, I found myself opening up again, allowing vulnerability back into my life. Natalie and I built something new, something entirely different from what I had with Allison. We did not rush, taking time to establish a foundation that could weather inevitable storms. Looking back now, 2 years after discovering Allison's betrayal, I see the experience differently. The pain was necessary for my growth. The end of my marriage forced me to re-examine everything, to rebuild myself from the foundation up rather than papering over cracks in my life. I learned that self-respect is not negotiable. That trusting again after betrayal is a choice requiring courage. That forgiveness is primarily for the forgiver, not the forgiven. Most importantly, I learned that endings, even painful ones, create space for new beginnings that might otherwise never have been possible. Sometimes the deepest wounds open doorways to places we never imagined. I do not regret loving Allison, but I am proud I found the strength to walk away. That may be the most valuable lesson life has taught me. If you have experienced betrayal in a relationship, remember this: it is not a reflection of your worth, but of their character. The path to healing is not through forgetting, but through rebuilding. Trust your gut when something feels wrong, and know that your capacity for happiness remains intact even when your heart feels shattered. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to walk away from someone you loved? If this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is start again.